Well, welcome back. I'm Frank Crowley, and I'm here with Gemma Mathewson by Zoom, and we're thankful for that. Equipment's working, and there's Gemma.
Hello,
yeah.
Frank.
And your sound is great, Gemma. Hello, Gemma, and you're co-producing with me today. We are in a mood of celebration. It is African American History Month and culture and poetry. Oh, this is exciting because Gemma's got some surprises, and it was a delightful surprise to hear what her poems that she chose are doing with each other. There's a kind of coalescence going on, which is magical and certainly unexpected for both of us. We just discovered it. It's so exciting.
Yeah, we're on the same theme in a way.
Yeah, we're on the same theme, just by chance, accident, or is it just accident, the mystery of poetry? No. So, the art of poetry, welcome. And we're into our second show now for the year. Oh, Gemma, I'm so glad you're back because last month's solo had its own vibe, but I prefer the one where we're doing it together.
But you had Rita Dove. That was.
Oh yeah, that was so much fun. And of course, the poet just drove it with her energy and her choice of words. So we'll do a little Rita Dove too, and here we go. Who are you in love with for today? Celebrating African American poetry, and so much to celebrate. That's the question, but I'm going to give you a little one-liner, which Kathleen, the librarian in Clinton Library, pulled up, and I said, I've never heard that. Irish proverb, quote, "A son is a son till he takes him a wife. A daughter is a daughter all of her life." But we're going to talk about fathers first. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful coalescence that Gemma and I have come up with simply by synchronicity, really serendipity. For a father, John O'Donohue, well-known mystic and poet and published, author of The Celtic Way. This book is To Bless the Space Between Us. It's a book of blessings, but really it's poetry. For a father, the longer we live, the more of your presence we find. Lay down, weave upon weave within our lives. The quiet constancy of your gentleness drew no attention to itself, yet filled our home with a climate of kindness where each mind felt free to seek its own direction. As the fields of distance opened inside childhood, your presence was a sheltering tree where our fledgling hearts could rest. That's about a third of the devotion, really. And I know you and I have talked, Gemma, about some of the memories of your father. Mm-hmm. And we all have fathers. And it's every now and then they break through the membrane of memory and are really alive and present to us. I wish today that my father were able to hear me say the things that are in my heart today, the fullness of it. And yet, that's what some of the poems will be about, I'm sure.
I have
So,
the same wish. So the first poem I'd like to read, and I switched it around a little bit, is a poem by Tracy K. Smith. And her father, well, you'll find out in the poem about her father. The poem is the excerpt I'm going to read is from one section, the fifth section of a 5-part poem, and it's called My God, It's Full of Stars. And that's what, if you remember the 2001 A Space Odyssey, that's how it ended. When the last vocal part of it was the astronaut saying, "My God, it's full of stars." So this is her poem, "My God, It's Full of Stars," the last section. Tracy K. Smith. When my father worked on the Hubble telescope, he said they operated like surgeons, scrubbed and sheathed in papery green, the room a clean, cold, a bright white. He'd read Larry Niven at home and drink scotch on the rocks, his eyes exhausted and pink. Those were the Reagan years, when we lived with our finger on the button and struggled to view our enemies as children. My father spent whole seasons bowing before the oracle eye, hungry for what it would find. His face lit up whenever anyone asked, and his arms would rise as if he were weightless, perfectly at ease in the never-ending night of space. On the ground, we tied postcards to balloons for peace. Prince Charles married Lady Di, Rock Hudson died. We learned new words for things. The decade changed. The first few pictures came back blurred, and I felt ashamed for all the cheerful engineers, my father and his tribe. The second time, the optics jibed. We saw the edge of all there is. So brutal and alive, it seemed to comprehend us back. So that's an African-American woman's recollection of her father, Tracy K. Smith. And it's from one of her collections called Life on Mars, which I love that whole collection, and I recommend it to everybody.
I like that little bit of rhyming in there, and My God, It's Full of Stars is a memory I'd forgotten from 2001. That's a great movie to go back to. So, what's she thinking now with the newest telescope up there that's
Interesting.
Yeah, been extolled for its capacity to see into the very depth and mystery and distance of the universe.
Well, I do have another poem of hers.
Good.
And though it isn't about fathers, I don't want to miss it. Because I think it's so brilliant. And
good.
it is a recent poem. She was trying to go back and improve on a poem she had written about Thomas Jefferson. And she got involved in a swerve, let's say. This poem is an erasure poem, and it's a poem which takes something that's already in print, and it eliminates some of the words or phrases in it to tell a different story. I won't tell what her source was, but you'll be able to figure it out. Or if you aren't, I'll tell you at the end. So the poem is called Declaration. And again, these are words from a bigger piece of writing. He has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He has plundered our, ravaged our, destroyed the lives of our, taking away our, abolishing our most valuable, and altering fundamentally the forms of our. In every stage, these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here, taken captive on the high seas to bear. So that's the African American experience here, but it's actually taken from a different piece of writing. Do you know what it is?
No, you got me.
Well, it's in the title, Declaration.
Oh, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Declaration of Independence of our people and our culture and our traditions. Oh,
Right.
we're coming to that, a kind of fruition of cultural understanding and value and respect, aren't we?
Well, that's the hope.
That's the hope. And you know, it's really a key factor in life. James Baldwin sitting in that chapel looking up, oh, help us, Lord. Yeah, I mean, so many voices are coalescing really in my head for this show. And one of them is someone we'll come back to in the second half of the show, but boy, Gwendolyn Brooks did it for me. She really hit pay dirt, I think. Some of her poetry is feisty, but I wouldn't call her feisty. She's got a equanimity to her, a balancing, a real gravitas, a sense of empowerment, and points the way. Do you have a Gwendolyn Brooks? Did you come across any?
Not this time.
Okay. Who else do you have that's really going to follow the theme of fathers and the love of fathers?
Well, I found this poem by Marilyn Nelson, who was a Connecticut poet.
Oh yeah, we did her not too long ago.
Yeah. It's from Miss Crandall's boarding school for young ladies of color, Canterbury, 1833 to 1834. It's called Worth. And it's tangentially about fathers, which I think is important to the poem. Today in America, people were bought and sold. 500 for a likely Negro wench. If someone at auction is worth her weight in gold, how much would she be worth by pound, by ounce? If I owned unimaginable quantities of wealth, could I buy an iota of myself? How would I know which part belonged to me? If I owned part, could I set my part free? It must be worth something, maybe a lot, that my great-grandfather, they say, killed a lion. They say he was black, with muscles as hard as iron. They say he wore a necklace of the claws of the lion he'd fought. How much do I hear for his majesty in my blood? I auction myself and I make the highest bid. And she's proud of her forefathers. And she sees her worth in her heritage, in her people.
It's a great sound to that poem. Yeah, and the image of the lion and the father. Well, that kicks off the kind of tone and voice that I fell in love with Gwendolyn Brooks. And I'm talking 30, 40 years ago. Do you know the poem The Bean Eaters?
I do. I don't have it with me, but I do know it, yeah.
They eat beans mostly. This old yellow pair, dinner is a casual affair, plain chipware on a plain and creaking wood, tin flatware. Two who are mostly good, two have lived their day, but keep on putting on their clothes and putting things away. And remembering with twinklings and twinges as they lean over the beans in their rented back room that is full of beads and receipts and dolls and cloths, tobacco crumbs, vases and fringes. For me, that's got a lot in it about isolation and overcoming old age, isolation, but her voice has the poetic rhyme that I really, I think, innately look for, just intrinsically for my style. How about you? Do you resonate to the rhyming of the voices that you have identified today to read? Is there much rhyming?
In some there is more than others. I perhaps later if we have time, I'll read a Amanda Gorman poem. I know she's in public consciousness right now.
Good choice. Yeah.
But he certainly has a rhyming. It's such a pleasure because there's internal rhymes and unsuspecting things rhymed with other things, and it's very musical. And I don't have that kind of music in my own poetry, but boy, do I respond to it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Boy, you really gave a good picture there. Who else? And on whose father is some of your poets resting? Yeah.
Charles Fort is again Connecticut poet. He was born in New Britain, and he teaches poetry at some university. I can't remember where. I think in Kentucky, but he has lived in Connecticut for his formative years. This one is called The Worker. It's about his father. Again, and it's more of a poem about a family like the one you just read about. But much more complicated. The Worker by Charles Fort. The father was a barber surgeon for 39 years from 9 to 5, a factory worker on the night shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for 38 of those years, and a landlord in our 3-story tenement 24 hours a day. On Saturdays, it seemed as if the entire Negro section of town had grown long hair. The sounds of shears still vibrate in my ears. I swept clouds into the wastebasket. The back room contained hard whiskey, bookies, and hidden magazines. When my father came home at 7 a.m., lifting his black aluminum lunchbox, we 7 children met him at the door, knelt, untied his shoes. His tired eyes burned lines into the side of that box. Each of us wanted the leftovers. We grew older and took turns. Steel ball bearings turned in his hands, given to us as marbles, and they were the largest on the block. They made my father supervisor. His white friends for 30 years now turned from his voice. Years before, in the U.S. Army, broke his legs in basic training and fused them for life. When dust began to fill my father's bones, I learned how chronic arthritis can lock together for any old man. From the back room, I heard my name and a razor being slapped against leather. With magazines thrown into place, I carried out his clean towels. I picked up clouds. So the clouds are the clouds of hair he was referring to earlier in the poem, but I just love how it ends with that phrase, I picked up clouds, because it's a poem about his father and his memories. And he had basically 3 jobs that he kept all in the air at the same time. That's such an incredible story about a father in such a compressed space. It's not a rhyming poem. It's the way he wrote it. It looks more like a paragraph, but it's a poem in that style.
Yeah, the freedom of a prose poem. I love it.
Yeah.
That really brings up the one sentence that really is riveted in my heart. Quote, Robert Hayden, "What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?"
Which is the next poem, Frank. You're freaking me out in the most wonderful way today.
I am completely freaked out, my dear.
Because
Oh.
because it is one of his most famous poems, and a poem that has become one of the most read poems in our American catalog. So I wanted to make sure I read it, but it's also a view of fathers that you just, that what did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? He had a totally different style. He was a student of Auden, so he has a different background in his ear for poetry.
Oh, yes, I see.
Should I read it? I don't want to interrupt your...
Oh, you just segued so naturally and just so serendipitously. Oh, Gemma, it's really amazing. And that's where I was this morning too. My own heart's telling me, what did I know? What did I know? Yeah, please read that one. Wow.
Those Winter Days, 1966, by Robert Hayden. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekly weather made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house, speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?
You read that beautifully, such heartfelt sentiments. And for me, that's the apogee of all the father poems in a fullest sense. I remember when I was 16, just had my license to drive the 53 Chevy, and I was so full of myself, but my mother said, would you just, before you get to studying your Latin, hop in the Chevy and bring this to Dad. It's his evening supper. He worked in the machine shop all day and then had a janitor's job at night. But what did I know? You know, what did I know of love's lonely? There he was sitting in the corner of a corridor, resting his head, I think, half asleep, on the job while he was pushing that floor polisher, all alone. It was probably 7 at night, and I came in with the supper bag and gave it to him and walked out and got in the Chevy and went on with my life. But oh, I knew nothing of love's austere and lonely offices, I'll tell you.
I have a memory of my father. When I was in high school, I had to meet the bus at like 6:20, 6:15, 6:20. So I had to get up very early. And if he didn't drive me, I'd have to walk, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, but it would be in the dark. So my parents didn't want me to walk in the dark to the bus stop. So he would wake up, make me an egg for breakfast, and drive me to the bus stop every morning. And my mother wasn't an early riser, and he was, but I don't think he would have needed to get up at 5:30 if it wasn't for me. And I just took it for granted at that time. Of course, until I had children of my own, I guess.
I guess that's the really moving part of it. Until we had children and grandchildren and now great-grandson. Wow. It's a whole shift in the universe. I almost feel like, you know, forget the Hubble telescope. Let's go on to this new one, whatever it's called.
Right.
Oh, speaking of seeing and knowing. So Robert Hayden is feeling Sundays too. He got up early. He didn't have to. And he made those banked fires blaze. And all this preparation for us. You know, it's just, you and I are on this same wavelength today. It's just a wonderful, magical coming together. I can't get enough of the poems you've chosen.
Well, I'm thinking as I'm reading them that I wanted to show that there's a variety of experiences within the African American community of what father means, what anything means, but what father means, and how it's not one voice, but it's a celebration of the multiplicity of voices. And yet, you and I are identifying with so many of those feelings. I think that's something that poetry does. We'll never know what it's like to be African American, but we can enjoy and feel some of the same emotions people outside of our own race feel. And it's just such a beautiful thing that they can share what they feel with us.
Gemma, thank you for that. You have just encapsulated all of the feelings, emotions, and summary of the first half of our show. This synchronicity is freaky. What a beautiful statement of common humanity and understanding. And, you know, the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the Iranians, and the rest, we've got such a commonality in the life of the heart, the open heart.
It's
which
what
is
Tracy K. Smith was saying about, we saw the enemy, we were, couldn't see the enemy as children. We were trying to make ourselves see the enemy as children in the Reagan era.
Yes, that phrase. Oh, thank you so much. What a fulfillment for this first half of the show. So we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back.
You don't. I'm going to get a glass of water.
Was that wine you said? A glass of wine?
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
I wouldn't be doing any reading if I was having a glass of wine.
Information is power, especially in times of uncertainty.
In the age of 24/7 breaking news headlines, viral tweets, and social media rumors, we all need to take extra steps to verify information before accepting and sharing what we read online.
Whether inaccurate information is purposely posted to deceive or defraud individuals or shared unknowingly by people who believe it's true, misinformation can be dangerous.
Is there a vaccine?
Are certain blood types immune?
Are additional stimulus checks coming?
When will we open back up?
Questions are expected,
And they deserve accurate answers.
We need you to rely on information from official sources and credible subject matter experts.
For both Connecticut-specific information and federal resources, visit ct.gov/coronavirus.
Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. As veterans, we can tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. But you've never been interested in easy. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide. It provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
Unfiltered.
reliable, and yours.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. Or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSC TV is your local Connecticut Midshore Valley digital connection.
Welcome back. I'm Frank Crowley, and I'm here by Zoom with Gemma Mathewson. And Gemma, we're on a roll. Who else did you present when you were searching?
Well, I did say I wanted to read Amanda Gorman poem, and it's a recent poem about, it actually refers, I think, mostly to the pandemic, and it's called The Miracle of Mourning, and mourning is M-O-R-N-I-N-G in the title. But in the first line, it's spelled M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. So mourning and mourning. She does have such a interesting response to words and weaving of words. So mourning in the title, meaning the early part of day, and mourning in the first line, meaning sadness. The Miracle of Mourning, Amanda Gorman. I thought I'd awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding a society storming. But there is something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog, Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch fingers her rosaries. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more closely tethered. The question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend. Like light, we can't be broken even when we bend. As one, we will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with family libraries, schools, waiters, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite not in the light, but in lack thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it is our grief that gives us gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Do not ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that in this distance, we will make our hearts grow fonder. For a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also the moments that make us humans kind. Let every dawn find us courageous, brought closer, heeding the light before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly, finally seeing in testing times we became the best of beings.
What maturity in that young lady's heart, truly. And you know, that poem is worthy of a presidential inauguration. That one, and probably so many more that she's capable of writing. Oh, what a wonderful happening that was. And I'm glad you read that poem, because all of the music that's inchoate, inherent in her talent comes out. And also the rhyming, you know, rosaries and groceries.
Yeah, I know. She has a lot of fun things, you know, thereof to love.
And so playful with the, you know, with the sounds of the words, and then sliding, you know, and then the different spelling, morning, and I love that poem.
Kind and humans makes humans kind. It's very playful with words, but it's all structured so carefully. Yeah, it sounds so facile in parts, because it just flows so well. But it takes a lot of thought to do something that seems so easy.
Well, you nailed it. That's exactly it, isn't it? And where did she come from? Just like a poet laureate born in the moment, and then, oh, this is so wonderful you would choose that. Thanks. And let's hear some voices in their own timbre and cadence. We've got one, Etheridge Knight. He was the husband of Sonia Sanchez, and he was also in prison during a time. So we've got a take on that in terms of family and family coalescence and cohesion. But Etheridge Knight was really a surprise to me. He's at the end of our Poetry Speaks book, and I'm so glad we're getting to him. So we've got a little intro, which we can call up now, and also a picture of him.
Etheridge Knight said of his poetry, "Prison is my major metaphor." Knight spent 8 years in the Indiana State Prison and started writing poetry there. The idea of ancestry is a moving account of trying to feel connected to family while in a jail cell and failing to stay connected when outside. Belly Song was written after Knight and some other poets came to the conclusion that the seat of feeling is not in the heart, but in the belly. Knight was a charismatic reader who made this recording in 1986.
Ancestry. Yes. It's a longer poem, and it captures so much of his life that he lived so intensely, so quickly. So he's going to speak to us in his own words, and listen for the music. Yeah. Here we go.
The idea of ancestry. Taped to the wall of my cell are 47 pictures, 47 black faces. My father, mother, grandmothers, one dead, grandfathers, both dead, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, first and second, nieces and nephews. They stare across the space at me, sprawling on my bunk. I know their dark eyes, they know mine. I know their style, they know mine. I am all of them, they are all of me. They are farmers, I am a thief. I am me, they are thee. I have at one time or another been in love with my mother, one grandmother, 2 sisters, 2 aunts, one went to the asylum, and 5 cousins. I am now in love with a 7-year-old niece. She sends me letters written in large block print, and her picture is the only one that smiles at me. I have the same name as one grandfather, 3 cousins, 3 nephews, and 1 uncle. The uncle disappeared when he was 15, just took off and caught a freight, they say. He's discussed each year when the family has a reunion. He causes uneasiness in the clan. He is an empty space. My father's mother, who is 93 and who keeps the family Bible with everybody's birth dates and death dates in it, always mentions him. There's no place in her Bible for whereabouts unknown. Each fall, the graves of my grandfathers call me. The brown hills and red gullies of Mississippi send out their electric messages, galvanizing my genes. Last year, like a Simon quitting the cold ocean, leaping and bucking up his birth stream, I hitchhiked my way from LA with 16 caps in my pocket and a monkey on my back. And I almost kicked it with the kinfolk. I walked barefooted in my grandmother's backyard. I smelled the old land and the woods. I sipped corn whiskey from fruit jars with the men. I flirted with the women. I had a ball till the caps ran out and my habit came down. That night, I looked at my grandmother and split. My guts were screaming for junk, but I was almost contented. I had almost caught up with me. The next day in Memphis, I cracked a crocus crib for a fix. This year, there is a gray stone wall damming my stream, and when the falling leaves stir my jeans, I pace my cell aflop on my bunk and stare at 47 black faces across the space. I am all of them, they are all of me. I am me, they are thee, and I have no sons to float in the space between.
I think that's fascinating. He changed in the second to last line, I have no children, to I have no sons. Fascinating. To float in the space between. 1968. Wow, what a year that was. 68. You and I have talked about that before, Gemma. Whoa. He moves me. I love his simile, like a salmon quitting the cold ocean, leaping and bucking up his birth stream. I hitchhiked my way from LA. There's a kind of embedded music and rhyme here, and yet it's so conversational and makes me remember my own stint and volunteering, and also my job back in 1970 was to bring a prison inmate education program, college level courses to Summers Maximum Security, 1970 to 72. What did I know? What did I know as a first year teacher in the community college as I went in through the gates that banged, and I dreamed the sound of that bang for decades. It was the closing of the gate into the classroom section of the prison. And then Tucson, Crossing the Yard, all those inmate education programs that followed Connecticut and Arizona. Makes me think of Jimmy Santiago Baca, B-A-C-A, also a prison poet. There's a whole genre. Wow, what a guy. Etheridge Knight.
It's interesting how in prison he's mindful of his ancestry, and when he says ancestry, he doesn't mean just the past. He means his family, really, the people, his aunts, but also his. Did he say grandniece or niece? The 7-year-old, who's the only one who smiles back at him.
Uh-huh. And the big lettering. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then later how he talks about how he feels he almost kicked his habit when he had been with his family for a while. That's so poignant and sad and terrible that he feels he almost made it.
Yeah.
And,
so
didn't.
heartbreaking.
That is a common story of addiction. But what I think, from what I understand, it's much more prevalent, a Black experience, that they're incarcerated for longer and helped less when African Americans have addiction. So that's also a very sad theme in our society.
Yeah, a double burden, isn't it? The racial aspect is something that cries for justice and equality. You know, in treatment, the Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, and later in life, he, in a sense, got religion or reformed or whatever that really gave him the perspective to look back and to really make hay while the sun shines as a poet. Great experience to come across him. I think also that as you identify the family and tradition, I think embedded in this poem is a lot of culture, family culture. And I love the way he mentions the red earth and the setting in Mississippi.
It again, identifying with a feeling, and this is no way it means to imply equivalence, but when I pictured him with all those family pictures around him, I thought of how, especially during the first year of the pandemic, I put a lot of family pictures around me too, because I missed everybody so much. And I wasn't incarcerated.
Yeah. Oh, that is a beautiful comment on it. To kind of get to the end of his production, he's got interesting life story. It's although he was not a prolific writer, Knight continued throughout the 70s to write poems that balanced traditional metrical devices with rhythms of black street talk and blues. Yeah, I'm hearing the rhythm of the music. He remarried twice, and he had 2 children with one wife and one with another. Difficulties persisted, including trouble with drugs and drinking. In 1980, he published Born of a Woman, New and Selected Poems, and settled in Memphis. In 87, the Essential Etheridge Knight received the American Book Award, and in 1990, he received a BA in American Poetry and Criminal Justice from Martin Center University in Indianapolis. By the time of his death on March 10, 1991, Knight was recognized as a major African-American poet who created a living connection between his powerful, purposeful poems and his audience. And that sons in the last line, second to last line of the poem, you know, I have no sons in between. That's a wonderful little summary of his life. Well, we had a good time with Rita Dove. Was there some thought or lingering coda from Rita Dove that you remember from last show that struck you?
Just that she touched on so many of the important salient. What is it? What's the title? It was the
Oh, it was just so wonderful.
Days kind of thing.
Playlist of the Apocalypse.
The apocalypse, that's the word I'm
And boy, if we're not in the apocalypse now, we never will be.
Right.
We're in the swim, we're in the drink. Oh boy. I couldn't believe how she nailed it all. You know?
Yeah.
Politically. She
every note of it. all of our concerns.
So, before I get to, and I may not, to our devotion, our reading, I want to just pop back to good old, we real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. That's the way she read it. Oh, Gwendolyn. And there's a poem here that I'm just so crazy about that we'll hold it over until next time as a continuing celebration. Gemma, that's the key word, the operative word for the whole year. I'm convinced. Our little celebration of synchronicity today and the serendipity of coming together in such a beautiful, magical, unexpected way. Oh, that was such a thrill. And then Poetry and Politics, which will be rolling along in the next 2, maybe 3 TV shows we do. So our March is coming up, and I'm trusting and hoping that you'll be Zooming with me, or you never know. But from the Bean Eaters collection, there's a wonderful poem about the Betterment League Society of Ladies who go into the ghetto. So hold that thought.
Okay, thank you.
That's a knockout. Oh, and she says it with such credibility. So, till next time, thank you, Gemma.
Thank you, Frank. For
proper celebration of African American history and poetry. And I love the new technique here with our technical services, and Emily is about to send me off into the stratosphere with camera work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and you home at the audience, please join us next time in March for The Art of Poetry for Gemma Mathewson and Chris Morgan and Emily. Send me off. Send me off. Here we go.